Hey friends, today I will tell you about how 2 rabbits and their carrots changed my outlook in life and why you will probably be better off minding your own business. If you're new here, welcome to the tribe. My name is Mandy, and for everyone else, welcome back, and I'm super excited to hang out with you again today. Let's get into it. A friend and colleague of mine who also teaches yoga and who is very skilled at doing advanced yoga poses always gets very angry when people tell her, "You make it look so easy." Her reply usually is, "Well, it isn't easy. It took me years to be able to do this, so please stop diminishing my hard work and dedication." I always have to smile at this because it is so true, and it is also very applicable to our society today. Now let me introduce you to my rabbit friends, and it's actually quite likely that you have met them yourself before. I saw this image for the first time over 10 years ago, and back then it had a big impact on how I then started to perceive the world and also on the choices that I then made thereafter. I was in my early 20s, I was just starting out in life, and back then when I looked around me it felt like everyone in my age group were further along than me. It really made me anxious, and it made me feel like I was always behind somehow, and I couldn't understand why, because I had a really well-paying job, so in theory I should be able to have what they had. This went on for a while, and then when I saw this picture, I started looking at the world through different eyes, and I looked a bit deeper, and then I realized what you see on the outside is not always a reflection of what is going on underneath the surface. I started seeing that the fancy electronics were bought on debt, or that the fairy tale perfect relationship showed a different side after a couple of drinks, or the hidden signs of maintenance that was necessary on a very expensive house for which there just was no money left at the end of the month after the suffocating mortgage had to be paid. Now, this is not a judgment on anyone. We all do it, and I mean, none of us want to show our dirty dishes to the world, and quite frankly, the world doesn't want to see it either. And the intention of this episode is not to rage and rant about a fake world, but rather what it does to us when we see it, and more importantly, when we misinterpret what we see. Back then it was a source of great anguish for me, and it had the potential to send me down a path of a series of bad decisions had I not realized the reality of things, and also if it weren't for my 2 little rabbit friends who helped make the penny drop. If I had taken the seemingly perfect relationships I saw around me at face value, the expectation of that could have ruined my own. If my husband and I would have bought the large property that we had our desperate sights on back then, it would have put us under so much strain, and it would still be baggage today because of all the work and money that we would have had to put into it. Back then it would have been great to show to the world what fancy things we can afford. However, it would have done us no favor. It would have been stressful and potentially crippling for us today. So I'm super grateful that we decided against it back then. Now, of course, I'm not saying don't buy a house or whatever else it is that you want. I'm just saying do it for the reason that will make you happy in the long run, and that you will be able to and want to sustain for years to come. And don't do it because you think you should be, because everyone else is doing it. I think I want to add a subtitle to our little rabbit picture. If we only focus on what we can show on the surface, it won't be sustainable to feed us in the long run. Now, I'm definitely not saying that everyone who shows success on the outside didn't put in the hard work, or didn't make clever choices, or don't have the perfect relationship or a great relationship. That's just not true. It's exactly these successful people, truly successful people, that I want to talk about next, and specifically how we often misinterpret their journey to success, and they tie in with what I started this episode with. When you open your social media and you see the very best of the best performing at their very best with the caption, "How I did this in only 7 days," Please remember the words of my friend in the beginning of this episode. If it looks super easy, there's most probably years of effort behind that to build a foundation in order to be able to do that within 7 days. So my social media is kind enough to keep showing me ads on how to do a handstand, because they know our deepest soul's desire. And I get so irritated when I see, just do these 5 exercises and you'll be able to do a handstand in a week. And then you buy the course, and once you get into it, you realize, yes, it is indeed possible. If you've been doing gymnastics since you were 5 years old. The issue I have with this is that we are flooded with messages telling us that we should be able to do hard things without putting in hard work. That we should be able to do this quickly and easily, and what we instead end up with are completely unrealistic expectations and a defeated heart. The other problem it creates is that we start to think that we are wrong if we actually have to work hard for something, or if it takes us a bit longer to get something. We think that we must be doing something massively wrong if we don't see quick transformation within a short span. It doesn't matter what the focus area is, because everyone around us is doing it so effortlessly. And what follows is discouragement, disappointment, and just another chunk out of our confidence. Aww. For example, when I left my job and I started my first business, I felt like a complete failure because I was working at least 12 hours a day and I barely had anything to show for it in my bank account. And then at night I go into my social media and I see these ads of people telling me how to make $1 million within a couple of months. It made me feel so inadequate and like there was this magic that I was obviously missing. So eventually it wasn't the long hours that bothered me, because I actually enjoy working hard for something that I believe in. What bothered me were these nagging thoughts at the back of my mind that I got from all the impressions that I was inundated with, and the feeling that I was doing something wrong because to me it was hard, and it's not supposed to be hard. Or the fact that it took me really long just to get one step ahead, whereas it shouldn't take that long. Well, it turns out I was just looking at the wrong people. And I know this sounds obvious, but our mind works in a way that it just shows us what we don't have and how we're lacking. And then we grasp onto those images and we use it as proof against ourselves. So I turned my attention away from people who are trying to sell things, online courses on how to become this magnificent entrepreneur. And I started looking at people whose lives are testimony to what works. The people who inspire me now are not the ones who say it will be quick and easy, but rather the ones who say it's definitely possible, but it takes hard work, dedication, determination, and time. The moment I realized that it's okay if it's hard work, and it's okay if it doesn't happen within 7 days, or 6 months, or a year, or 2 years, in that moment I found peace. And in that moment it gave me the space to start embracing and enjoying the process. I love watching old craftsmen at work, the magic they create with only their hands and some basic tools, and these skills that they've acquired over years of practice and patience. Unfortunately, I think that patience is a dying art. By the way, this is also an opportunity for you to check whether you are really interested in what you are pursuing. If you don't think that it's worth it to put in the time and effort, then maybe it's just not that important to you. Sometimes we are more excited about the idea of something than the actual reality of it. So another line I would like to add to our little rabbit picture is, good things come to those who work and know how to wait. And I'm presenting this not as an absolute, but rather as a counterweight to that which I think could lead you to discouragement because of the majority of impressions that we're getting from all around us. And I know if it's something that I struggled with, it's very probable that someone else is struggling with it too. That being said, if you do get there fast and easy, I'd be happy to be proven wrong and I would happily applaud you. One last point I want to mention is to be realistic about what you have to work with. We all have different starting points and different foundations to work from, so that means that for all of us the journey will look different. So if you don't have money for a plane ticket and you have to take a bus, you're going to get at the destination later than the guy who takes a non-stop flight there. That's just the reality of it. No amount of wishful thinking will change that. So that same principle applies to everything else in life as well. We've got different support systems, we've got different backgrounds, we've got different belief systems, we've got different starting points, we are in different stages of our lives. All of that will influence our individual progress. That's why it's so important not to compare yourself, because no matter how much you read up on a person, you never really know their complete story. You don't know what their parents taught them. You don't know what influences they had in life. So you don't know what their real starting point is. So don't worry about what you see. Just work with what you have. I guess what it comes down to is to not be discouraged by what you see on the surface around you, and also put overnight successes into perspective for yourself. Know that yes, it might seem like it was overnight or that it happened within 7 days, but it is based on years of work prior to that, years of missteps, disappointments, learning curves that laid the foundation for them to be able to grow quickly. So because of that, focus on your own path. Know that it is going to take time and dedication, especially if it's an ambitious goal. So don't get discouraged. Love the process and only look around you for inspiration and never for comparison. That's it, my friends. Enjoy the bloopers coming up. If you want to help me, please hit that like button and of course subscribe if you haven't yet. And as always, remember to live an empowered life. Catch you in the next one. Hey friends! Great start. Hey friends! How to MLG tribe, we don't, oh no. Really who also new word. No massive expensive, so they're expensive. I had no massive expensive. Now you know why there's a bloopers section. But the, it's, oh. Start a YouTube channel, they said. It will be fun, they said. Help me make the penny drop. Help me make? Do we make penny drops or do they just drop? Somewhere, anyway. Okay. Got a little over passionate there.